Peyton. Nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by Hans Hofmann, the former German art professor who turned out to be an American. The ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. What thoughts does this quote trigger in your mind, bro?
Hey, good to be back, my friend. Yeah, this is a call to the via negativa in our thinking and our messaging and our doing in this message of essentialism that really does have so much power in very many dimensions of our lives. And the thing that I think is behind the push for this, or why it is important to remind ourselves of the importance of simplification, of removing what is not needed, of distilling, whether it is in our thoughts, whether it is in our daily activities, whether it is in very many things within our lives, is the value of or the recognition of opportunity cost that is often invisible to us when we are adding stuff in. Most of the time, when we say we want to do this thing too, we want to include this thing too, we want to add that thing in, we want to tack that thing on. We see we use half of the algebra, and we see the cost benefit of this thing. What will it cost me directly to do it in resources, in utilization and energy, whatever, and what will it give me? But oftentimes, what we neglect is the opportunity cost and the true opportunity cost of doing this thing, spending so much energy and so much resources and so much time over here on this idea, this activity, this pursuit. The opportunity cost is what we could be doing instead. And the opportunity cost of something in its true potential is what would we most value? What is most aligned with our purpose that we could be doing instead? And if we really inspect a lot of our actions, a lot of the things that we say yes to through that lens, is this as important as the most important thing that I value the most that I could be investing this same resource, the same scarce and finite resource toward? Would that be more valuable? And oftentimes, the things that we say yes to, the new things, the new shiny objects, do not stand that test. We cannot actually look at that and say that, yeah, that is more valuable than my highest mission. That is more valuable than my top priority. That is more valuable than the things that I myself have defined as my most important goals for this year or for my way of being, even. And so that opportunity cost, I think, is an equation that many of us run instinctively, naturally, with a little bit of an underestimation in our common heuristics, and that I think is a part or a bias that many of us, myself absolutely included, consistently apply and repeat over and over and over on various decisions and fundamentally allocations of scarce resources of time and energy and other stuff when we're deciding what to do. What do you think about simplification and the power that it has, or how we might use it?
Well, thanks for your insights and your idea. You mentioned the via negativa, which we mentioned like quite a bit of times now. And this is actually leaving stuff that is unnecessary. The via negativa means leaving stuff and not doing stuff that is not necessary to do, so that you have the time and space to do the stuff that really counts, that really matters. This is like Peter Drucker saying in The Effective Executive, um, do the stuff that really has an effect, and don't do the stuff that does not have an effect. But if you do the stuff that does not have an effect, then you don't have time and space for the things that really move the needle. So, in a sense, via negativa means just make space for things that matter to you, that are most valuable to you. And Hans Hofmann, with his approach to simplify, he was an artist, and he knew of the concept of negative space as well. that if you have negative space around the main object, maybe, then this object is much more in center. This is more highlighted. So this is what immense means, for example, when the necessary may speak. If you don't fill out all the void of the picture, then you have much more emphasis on the main thing. And there's another saying that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And for that, it's also an approach to leave out the things that are not the main thing. And this is harder said than done. It's easier said than done, not harder. It's easier said than done, because we want to do so much. We want to do so much stuff, but in the end, we only have so much time. And if we want to move the needle in our life and know what matters to us, then we have to really decide to not do things, to really leave out doing things. So, Peyton, what do you want to leave out?
Mm, that's a great question. A lot of things for sure. Yeah, I can say that I can be kind of a crass consumer of activity in the sense of just having this default of yes, yes, yes. And this happens, of course, externally, but also even internally when we think about the things that occupy our mind. The opportunity cost of following this train of thought over here and then getting absorbing going reading the news and then having my brain running on that in the background and then watching this TV show and then that's kind of ruminating and thinking and running and replaying or whatever and then I go over here I get into this new thing and I go over here and I get into this new thing and this pattern can divide our attention so effectively and so frequently and it can become kind of a part of our baseline to have our attention fragmented and divided and this is, I think, where much of this begins and really where ultimately it translates into so much of an impact on our direct experience and our power in the world. Because ultimately our greatest power to act in bold ways comes from clarity, not from a divided, fragmented mind. Our greatest power to create comes from unitasking and unity of awareness, not from fragmented attention and multitasking. And yet, constantly, we are just opening, opening, opening. And if I am in the middle of a project and I walk to the bathroom and spend 3 minutes going back and forth, if I pull up Twitter and I'm scrolling Twitter on the way there, then my mind and my attention is going to be fragmented when I get back. And just the same, even if I don't pull out Twitter, but I just start thinking about some conversation that I had yesterday that isn't applicable to what I'm working on, then my attention is going to be divided rather than unified, and I will lose the clarity. The clarity of action, the clarity of thought, the clarity of judgment, the clarity of movement, and flow, as well as decisiveness, are a great power that we can bring to whatever we would bring it toward. And we can accomplish something in 1/5 the amount of time if we are truly in a flow state to accomplish it, and the result will be even better. And that's a real statistic that's been validated a few times that I've read. Maybe it's three, maybe it's five, maybe it's seven at different times for different people, but it's really, really powerful to have a united, clear mind that is focused singularly on something that is of high importance. And the more that we can structure our routines so that we're spending more of our time at that level of performance, working on the most important thing with our absolute most united, clear mind, by far more we can accomplish. And especially in terms of value creation, especially in terms of big picture working on our mission, not just the relentless busyness of maintenance and running in place and the Red Queen effect that we can experience from this divided, fragmented mind just constantly scrambling to keep up just to maintain stasis. But rather, this is a mode of being that can, if we can create the space, if we can create the clarity of mind, if we can have the discipline to focus on one thing at a time, we can actually move and move and move and gain momentum going forward in various aspects of our lives. And this is an essential or it's a very useful meta skill that really can only come from an internal discipline that gives us the simplicity that is required to operate in such a way. And so that's an internal way of this via negativa and the call for simplicity. And I can say that vividly, I experience the difference between when my mind is clouded and I'm in confusion and I am just talking, talking, talking. There's a voice over here, there's a thought over here, there's this negative thing, then there's this positive thing, and then there's this other subject, there's this other subject change. And there can be this swarm of thought that covers up our awareness. And it has a lot to do with what we are putting in, what is coming into our awareness, what are we dumping in there, and then what are we following? What are we feeding? Are we nourishing clarity, or are we constantly, in one way or another, bombarding our internal system with all of this cacophony that distracts us, fragments us, and causes us to be unable to focus and to stay in the zone and to unitask and to have a unity of presence, a unity of intention that is really the sort of greater potential to channel our force into whatever is most important to us in front of us. What about you? What do you think about the cutting out that seems to be the greatest opportunity for you, or the simplification that calls to you?
Well, there's another saying that goes like that: any fool can make a thing complex, but it takes a genius to make something simple. And
Yes.
that goes into the Red Queen effect as well. Like C.S. Lewis wrote, was it C.S. Lewis? I don't know. But here in Alice in the Wonderland, here you have to run twice as fast to stay at the same place. So, and if you just fight against windmills, like if you do work, but like do the work which really has an impact, then you have to run faster, but still don't move forward. It's like treading water. It's nothing much. And uh, the genius in simplification is also from the perspective of understanding a system. You have to take things away, like the noise away, so that you see the signal. You have to really put away all the irrelevant details so that the essential things come out and their relationships and the relationships between the things stand out. So simplification also helps with understanding. And through that understanding, you can really determine what is effective, uh, what you can do to be effective in the things you do. So if you understand the system, then you can pull the lever, you can manipulate the knob, and then it produces a different outcome, but the outcome you want if you understand it and pull the right lever. So yeah, but in that regard as well, you have to, like Albert Einstein said, make things simpler, make things simple, but not any simpler. Like as simple as possible, but not simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too of just one example that stands out to me is Steve Jobs' philosophy of design at Apple, and how constantly over and over, as he was building this monster of an empire of this iPhone and the huge ecosystem that now surrounds it, he was constantly stomping on people's toes by insisting that it must be simpler, 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 simpler. His competitor phones had a whole keyboard on it and 40 buttons and four volume buttons and a lock button and this and that. And he was like, no, we're going to have the volume, we'll have a lock button, and there's going to be a circle at the bottom. And then the next year he was like, okay, we're taking out the headphone jack. Now there's just one jack. And then we're taking away the button at the bottom too. And this relentless simplicity is a part of what gave his products and designs such an elegance and such a usability and a naturalness to so many people, and in the end, such a differentiated value and really differentiated design. And going back to what you said earlier about the white space and the making space, I think that it applies so much both outside and inside. If we think about when we say yes to this thing, we actually are saying no to the opportunity that might arise in our life next month if we had the white space to pursue that. When we say yes to for example, buying this business, then I'm absolutely not going to be offering on another business in 6 months that might be better. So we don't have the opportunity cost visible. Actually, we just see this thing in front of us versus an unknown series of possible opportunities coming forward. And so this is where we must have judgment because we actually don't have most of the time when we say yes to something. It's presented to us one at a time. It's not presenting to us, okay, do you want to sign up for these guitar lessons? It's offered to us as a yes or no. They don't come up to you and say, would you like to sign up for these guitar lessons, or would you rather spend 2 hours with your kid, or would you rather start working out during those evenings, or would you rather pick up a meditation habit, or would you rather read this book that you've been really interested in, or would you rather join a volleyball club with your friends that are going to ask you in a month, or would you rather this or this or this? We're not presented all the opportunities at once. It is one at a time. And so we don't have the luxury of writing out pros cons list of 19 columns of all the future things that might arise in that white space if we were to allow it. Rather, we are meant to judge one at a time. Is this thing above my threshold? And how do we do so? How do we know what to say yes, what to say no to? We know that we say yes probably too often. We know that it probably serves us to guard our space and our energy and to recognize that there is a high opportunity cost of unknown potential whenever we do something and invest finite resources into something. But at the same time, we do not want to say no to everything. We want to live a full life. We want to fully engage with the opportunities that are before us. So how do we know how to strike the right balance? And this is where I believe that the internal essentialism, the internal simplicity becomes absolutely paramount to us walking our path with wisdom. Because, in fact, you cannot take all of these infinite, incommensurable possibilities, the pursuit of learning an instrument, the pursuit of investing in your relationships, the pursuit of going and getting a pet, the pursuit of spending more time in nature, the pursuit of your health, the pursuit of growth, the pursuit of perhaps entrepreneurship, or the pursuit of creativity, or the pursuit of any of these various things. Do I want to journal? Do I want to meditate? What should I be focusing on? What should I be allocating this very limited resource on, knowing that if a yes to this thing means a no to an infinite amount of other things that I could be saying yes to that also might serve me? How on earth are we supposed to run that math? And the fact is that the left brain, the narrator, the language part of us, cannot do that math. It's going to spin narratives, and ultimately, it is going to confabulate a story to support whatever our emotions are calling us toward most of the time, or whatever a part of us is totally wrapped in on that can shout really loud about. And if we let the left brain rule these decisions, if we let our ego steer the ship here, a lot of times it's going to do stuff that doesn't serve us. If we're making all of these choices on what I should say yes, what I should say no to, just based off of logic and language, because that's what we're taught, because that's what other people will, that's the only way we can communicate to other people. So when they say, why are you going to do that? Why are you not going to do that? We have to come up with language to communicate our reasoning to other people so that we can be understood, so that we can have alignment with the people in our lives that may also be stakeholders in such decisions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The world is going to be pulling us into this language as the decision maker sort of mentality. The world is going to be pulling us into think it out, run the math, do the logic, and then come to a conclusion based off of that. But when we actually inspect what that means, we realize that it's completely untenable. And so we're kind of half solving the problem. And then we just at some point must say that, okay, this is a reason that has strong enough words or strong enough quote logic that yes or that no. But ultimately, this math is never complete. When you actually inspect the proof, you realize that it's never actually a proof. It's just a narrative. And you can come up with a narrative over here. You can come up with a narrative over here. You can come up with a narrative over here. You can make a narrative for anything. You can confabulate a story to justify literally anything that you want to do or that you don't want to do. And so it's not actually a good way of navigating. It's not actually a map that will be true to the territory. And we can see this in our own experience when we were gung ho with this really zealous story about why we wanted to do this thing. We go into it and we're like, oh, that sucked. That was a bad idea. That was a mistake. And then sometimes we come up with a story and we do something that's good. And we realize that, okay, this storyteller sometimes would tell the story. And then the reality is not like the story was in the first place. And it's actually not just This word math is not real math. It doesn't actually teach us stuff. It just is a good way for us to narrate these things, to try to plug them into our conceptual map, and then to communicate them to ourselves and to others, and to form an identity around it and a narrative around it and a sense of stability around why we make the decisions that we do based off of who we are and how we identify, et cetera, et cetera. But this is actually not a good way to make complex decisions where we don't have A, B, pro, con list, only two choices, binary. We can compare them, we can do logic, map them out, we can run the numbers, crunch the numbers, and see a sum and a total, and then compare the two. And this one's bigger than this one, so therefore I'm going to do this one. Real life decisions on what we pursue most of the time don't work like that. So, how do we make the decisions? And in the end, wise decisions, wise navigation of our life requires us first to have the humility to realize that we can't run the word math. The word math isn't going to work. The word math isn't going to actually tell us the true answer. We're just kind of guessing and convincing ourselves that we're not guessing. And we're being driven around by our ego. We're being driven around by our baser emotions of fear or greed or whatever. And we're not admitting it to ourselves most of the time. And so a lot of times we pursue paths that don't ultimately serve our growth, our well being, and our higher purpose. So, what does? How can we pursue that? How can we have more wisdom in our judgment? And in my opinion, this comes back to creating this white space that we're talking about internally, creating this clarity internally, and not a clarity of, oh, I have a really good words, I have really good sentences that I can lay out about this, one word in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other, in this logical chain that will tell me the ultimate right answer. But in fact, it's creating this white space. It's actually creating this clarity in our minds so that rather than talking, yapping all the time in our brain, and this voice says this thing, this voice says this thing, we try to narrate, we try to think, we try to make a really good story that we can feel really good about and communicate to others that they're not going to be able to poke holes in because we thought of the objection over here, we thought about what we're going to say when they say that thing over there. No, it's in fact our best wisdom, our best judgment, our best decision making that can take in all of this context, including our sense of ourselves, including our sense of what serves us, including our sense of our purpose, including our sense of the world around us and where it moves. All of these complex variables that cannot be mapped out by putting one word in front of another. It is our intuition that we must rely on to make decisions if we want to have a greater wisdom than the ego manager can conjure up. And if we want to live a good life, we'd better learn to listen to wisdom rather than to the cacophonous little manager in the brain that's not taking into account most of the context. And this is where this simplification becomes essential because if we're yapping in our brain nonstop, this cacophony becomes our base state. And we can go months without being in a place to actually listen to the guidance that we need for this. The internal GPS that we all have here is only available if we listen, if we feel it. And this will not give us oftentimes this story that we can communicate to others in a really satisfying way, but it actually will give us much, much better guidance for what to do and what not to do in our lives if we trust it, if we have faith, and if we recognize how it tends to do compared to the other way of making decisions. If we pay attention to the cause and effect of when we listen to our intuition versus when we listen to the talker in our brain, we realize that, oh my God, I want this guy making the decisions, not this guy. And that habit and making the mistakes in both in the other direction over and over and seeing how it goes, that can help us to gain more and more and more of a trust in the inner GPS and less of tyranny of the talker in our brain, in the left brain. And so that I think is key to making these decisions about what to say yes, what to say no to, how to simplify, where to simplify, and where to actually cash in this simplification for directed, intentional purpose to move something forward or to manifest something that we want or to drive whatever we may want to drive within our path using what we have in front of us. What do you think about this
Yeah.
kind of a thing and this the way that we really should use the no's of our life to say yes very well in very specific ways?
Yeah, man. That's a great way of seeing it. And it points also towards drowning out the noise inside your own head, not constantly listening to all the yapping that your mind is doing, not listening to all the stories and the complexity of the intertwined drama that comes when you move in the world and meet other people and think about your life and so on. But to really seek out monotonous silence, like having maybe a run or a walk where you one step after the other have this monotonous, this single minded thing, so that it drowns out all the noise. You become quiet and you go to a place where it's quiet. Maybe it's the mountains, maybe it's on the lake, maybe it's in nature or in the forest, wherever. But essentially, where you find a sense of serenity, a sense of beauty, or a sense of quietude, where all the noise inside your head drowns out, so that your intuition may speak or whisper silently. And if you listen to your intuition whispering to you, you're much more likely to really feel what you need, to really know what is time for doing for you. And therefore, some entrepreneurs also just seek out their quiet hut in the mountains of Norway or wherever to really reflect and go inside themselves and then make the best decisions. Because if you have a big lever and you make a decision which is 1% better, it can result in a much higher return on investment, which can also result in the difference between survival or slow decay. And in a sense, it's the same for us in our life, where we make decisions uh, which are 1% better than other decisions, and that tends to compound if you don't destroy the 1% better decision through making bad decisions again. So that's the challenge. Drowning out the noise also means seeking quietude to really feel what you need, to really feel what is time to do. And yeah, with that, how would you like to seek out some quietude next week, or some monotony?
This is a wonderful question. Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is an intention for me as much as it is a practice. I notice there's oftentimes my outer body is trying to pursue this quietude. I'm going on a walk, or I'm in the sauna, or I'm meditating, or I'm doing this or that that is ostensibly on the outside, this kind of a practice. But for me, what I'd like to get better and better and better at is internally holding true to my highest intention for the space that I carve myself during my evenings and during the week, to truly bask in listening, to truly bring my intentions all the way toward I am not going to, I'm not here to narrate and argue within my brain. I am not here to try to math out words for the next 2 hours. I'm not here to add more and more and more thoughts and more ideas and just cacophony from all sides. And so that is my intention for this, is when I give myself space to listen to silence, when I give myself space to reconnect with the light within, with awareness and with intuition, with listening, that I truly will um, hold that intention with some reverence, and really try to honor that time by fully internally connecting with it, not going through the motions and just yapping inside while I do it, but actually saying that what the voice inside, what the narrator, what the thinker has to add to this is this is not the time. It is not as valuable as what it is here to listen to, what it is here to hear. And so yes, this is what I'm going to look to bring to, in fact, today, as well as throughout this week, is this internal commitment to have this sort of devotion to the heart, and this devotion to listening, this commitment inside to not just do it on the outside, but actually to fully connect with it, into yeah, to use opportunity for the highest potential that it has by getting out of the way a little bit more. How about you, my man? What is your intention this week?
Yeah, man, similar. This commitment to really seek presence, really commit to saying, okay, here I am. I'm with my full being. I'm engaging in this kind of new environment, and also seek out quietude in the morning, and by not reaching out to social media directly after waking up, which is like bad. Just leaving out the bad stuff is my goal for this week, that I want to systematize. Not reaching out to social media in the morning or at night, in the nighttime. So that
That's actually been
the
something that I integrated recently as a side note is not checking texts or not touching my phone at all until after my first ultradian cycle of flow state work in the morning. It has really helped me to get
very
that
good,
chunk of
very good.
good work done first before I add the noise.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, if you really like cut the noise, then focus on the stuff that matters. You can
Hmm.
propel yourself forward quite a bit.
Yes.
um, so I think I will model you in that regard, um, and think about an implementation plan with that. So
Wonderful, my man.
may, may we drown out the noise so that the signal may be felt. See you next week, my friend.
See you next week, my friend. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
I appreciate it. Bye.